Ah, Krillin. For a long time in Dragon Ball fandom, many people have often made fun of you. What a long way you've come within the understanding of your Western fans. When I was young, people would often remark that Krillin got taken down too quickly and therefore was brushed aside as a favorite character for many. Since, on the surface at least, most shonen battle series are about the action and the fights, it is somewhat understandable that people would come to this conclusion. Even though, in a series like Dragon Ball, at least from my perspective, there are many aspects of the series that I love beyond the action. Yes, the unique world and the over the top fighting are certainly draws for me, as they are for many, but it is the scope of the story and the richness of the characters that makes the series so special to me. Years ago, when I started making videos on this channel, it was primarily academic style analysis of Dragon Ball characters. The first one I did this on was Krillin. Let's go back and take a look at him, shall we? Like many of the characters Goku meets, Krillin started out as his rival. In fact, his first introduction showed him as not being a very nice person. He was competing against Goku to be Roshi's apprentice. Early on, he demonstrated he was more clever than Goku, at least in some ways, often trying to outwit the hero and even use underhanded techniques to do so. The reason for Krillin's demeanor is simply that, up until that point, he probably didn't have a very good life. Raised by monks, he was made fun of for being the weakest of his order. Seeking out Roshi was an attempt to prove himself and get back at those who had scorned him all his life. Naturally, Goku's charm and Roshi's teachings actually helped improve Krillin's outlook and turned him into the more outgoing, likable monk that he is throughout the rest of the story. Until meeting Roshi and Goku, Krillin most likely never had any friends or family who would respect and encourage him. This makes his loyalty to Goku all the more meaningful later. Krillin would serve for the first major shift in drama when he is killed by King Piccolo's henchman, Tambourine, adding a whole new level of stakes for our heroes and pushing Goku into a frenzied rage which would be evident in future events. Krillin would continue to be one of the most consistent members of Earth's protectors, being one of the few to survive the onslaught of the Saiyans. He showed a vengeful, unforgiving nature and probably would have murdered Vegeta had it not been for Goku's pleas otherwise. He would even swallow his courage and go deep into space to find Namek and seek out new Dragon Balls. Here, he would befriend Gohan much in the same manner as he did Goku, having saved the boy and even Vegeta on several occasions. He would continue to stand loyally with his friends, facing down powerful foes and dying again, giving Goku the boost to transform into the Super Saiyan stage for the first time. With the battles against Cell, Buu, and beyond, Krillin's role would diminish in terms of fighting power, but he remained actively involved and certainly did what he could. So, what exactly makes Krillin so great? In polls, he's usually pretty highly ranked among fans. As a friend of mine once said, you really can't have Dragon Ball without him. He's iconic. Is it the comic relief? Maybe, but many characters form that role in this series. He's also not that powerful, then why is he so beloved by many, while a character like, say, Yamcha is generally looked down upon? What makes Krillin so special? I would argue that, in the chaotic, fantastical world of Dragon Ball, Krillin is one of the most relatable people. It's ironic that, in most series, Krillin would be the savior. He's one of the most powerful humans on the planet. It's just the threats that he faces are far more ridiculous in this world. In a world of gods, super mutants, demonic entities, and planetary conquerors, he might as well be a normal guy. There's an element of humor in there somewhere. Simply put, he's a character that keeps things grounded, not just with a sense of humor and comic relief for levity, but Krillin is often the more practical of the fighters. He's no genius, but the questions that he asks often provide ways for the audience to gain exposition, meaning Krillin usually has a better idea of the context of things than some of the other characters may. Simply put, he's insightful. He knows people. This may have something to do with his key manipulating abilities, which are among the best of the heroes, and martial arts prowess. He's a skilled fighter, but he also has intuition that rivals Goku's, but with maybe a little more brainpower. The best example of this is his ability to detect hidden power within enemies that even more powerful fighters can't pick up on. Also, as a brief side note, his abilities as a fighter can't be scoffed at. His lack of power means that he has to be more clever, managing to hold out longer than expected against far more powerful foes. He can also manipulate his ki very well, creating one of the most deadly attacks in the whole series, the Kienzan. Condensing energy blasts into discs sharp enough to kill foes far more powerful than himself? It's pretty awesome. It's too bad his lack of control makes it hard for him to actually hit anything. Another element that makes Krillin really stand out is that he's, well, rather human. He has some interesting character flaws. His sense of honor, sportsmanship, and even forgiveness are not on the same level as Goku's. After all, he was more than ready to finish off an injured Vegeta in revenge. Let's face it, this is relatable and understandable in the situation. Goku, in many ways, is a person we can strive to be like, a person we look up to. Krillin is a person that many of us are. In addition to being quick to anger, frustration, and even a sense of vengeance, Krillin is often a bit unsure of himself. This is partially due to the fact that he is always a bit out of his depth in these situations. But at his core, Krillin just wants to be a laid-back guy who enjoys the simple things. He's a warrior when he needs to be, and enjoys the sport. Otherwise, he just wants to kick back and enjoy life. For most of the series, he also really wants a girlfriend, and wants to eventually settle down and get married. He seems to have trouble finding the right woman, though. This naturally has to do with Toriyama's penchant for using sexual awkwardness to derive humor, and the fact that Krillin was raised by monks and was around men most of his life, so the lack of confidence around women is somewhat understandable. In that regard, I often joke with my friends that while Krillin loses most of the battles in Dragon Ball, in terms of end goals of the series, he kind of wins. I am of course referring to the fact that he ends up with Android 18, who's pretty much regarded as the most badass female character of the show. Now, to be fair, the primary reason that this transpired was because Krillin fell in love with a pretty face, although he noticed the androids were behaving a little differently, so Krillin probably would not have fallen in love with her had he thought that she was a pure killing machine. In any case, more interestingly perhaps, what did 18 see in the short, bald, noseless guy who was one of the weaker fighters and often scared out of his wits? Well, I suspect she admired his bravery and loyalty to his friends. We all know Krillin would have faced down all three androids, and probably died had they decided to kill him. Also, she could just have a thing for short, bald guys. In all seriousness, though, Krillin's greatest trait is his bravery. Even in situations where things were at their most dire, and Krillin knows there's very little he can do, he stands by his friends and actually manages to do some good. That's something I think many of us could find admirable and strive to emulate. I know I do. In life, you get knocked down many times, much like Krillin. And like Krillin, we get back up and try again and grow as we do. In short, Krillin is awesome. Until next time, friends, stay magical.